Bring the January 12, 2015 public meeting of the Fayette County Area Planning Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brenda, would you take attendance, please?
Yes. Ed Harrell.
Here.
Brian Jennings.
Here.
Warren Sudoff.
Here.
Mark Flum.
Here.
Gabe Nobby.
Here.
Dick O'Neill.
Here.
Leota King. Here. And Jason Waterman. Oh, and also Carl Hilton. We got two missing, but we do have a quorum.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes of the December 8, 2014 Area Planning Commission meeting. Any discussion from board on minutes? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, minutes are approved. Next on our agenda is the election of officers. We will start with nominations for president.
Mr. President, I nominate Brian Jennings for president.
I'll second that.
I second it. Okay, good.
Any other nominations for president?
I move the nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of Brian Jennings, myself, as president for this coming year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay. Moving on to vice president, nominations for vice president.
Nominate Jason Waterman for president, vice president.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of Jason Waterman as vice president of APC for the following year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, nominations for secretary for APC for 2015.
Nominate Brenda Todd.
Second.
Any other nominations?
Move nominations be closed.
All in favor of Brenda Todd as secretary for APC for 2015, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Congratulations, Brenda.
Thank you.
Appointments. Executive Director for 2015 for the Area Plan Commission.
Nominate Bill McDaniel.
I was going to say, don't stretch it out for me, please.
Okay, we have one motion for Bill McDaniel. I'll second. Second. Okay. All in favor of Bill McDaniel, Executive Director for 2015, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Congratulations, Billy. Got it another year.
Still employed.
Okay. Appointments of attorney for the Area Planning Commission for 2015.
I nominate John Baker. Second.
All in favor of John Baker for attorney of APC for 2015, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And the APC citizen appointee to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay. And for a little explanation, since Leota is new on the board. Now, for this one, it has to be actually one of the citizen appointments, which are made by either the county council, the county commissioners, or by the mayor's appointments. So in this case, that would be Mr. Harrell. Okay, Mr. Waterman already is, would be Mr. O'Neill, and then also Mr. Hilton. So one of those three as citizens, as a non-elected position, are the only ones that are eligible.
Last year was Jason, correct?
Jason is, he's appointed by the commissioners to fulfill both positions. So that's his actual commissioner's appointment. In addition.
I nominate Ed Harold.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of Ed Harrell for the APC Citizen Appointee to the Board of Zoning Appeals, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay. All right, next on our agenda is a public hearing for the floodplain district. We will now open the public hearing.
Okay, it's, I don't know how much attention other people paid about this, but we've discussed it on a fairly frequent basis for quite a while. Now, as of February 18th of this year, the new floodplain maps go into effect. Now, we are required to maintain participation in the National Flood Insurance Program is you need to readopt the floodplain regulations. There were no significant changes to the floodplain regulations. There's some changes in definitions, but there's nothing changed as far as construction standards. When does something actually require a floodplain permit? It doesn't change anything on variances for construction in a floodplain. The primary changes are reflecting that we've adopted new maps and the language is going to reflect that. So really, there isn't much. It's we really don't have a choice. That's not the best way, but it's something we're obligated to do to maintain participation. If there's any questions from any of the planning commission members.
Now, this moves on to the county
It'll be
council.
both the county council and also, the county commissioners and the city council. And I'll have those for their meetings on the next Tuesday, so that these can then be adopted by the city and the county. And then I get the copy to the contact with the state of Indiana with the DNR, Division of Water. And they'll have it in their records, and we're then now official with the floodplain maps and the floodplain rules.
There is a deadline on it. I think it's February 17th,
Yeah.
February 19th.
Yes, so we won't have a problem getting this in, and that's the reason we wanted to at least try to get it no later than this particular meeting.
Any discussion from members of the board? Anyone from the public? Okay.
Are the floodplain maps available? Do you have them here?
I do not have them with me, I have them in the office, but they're also, I'm also gonna get, there's a website, it's for the FEMA, you can print what's called a FERMET. It's the flood insurance rate map. Now, if you use the FERMET, is you're going to the FEMA, you're then able to say, get the map that you want, you can then highlight the area of the map itself, and that is an actual official real, that's a real copy of the floodplain map. So I'll have that information, but those are all online, and I also do have copies, both electronic and then also otherwise in the office.
Any other comments from the public?
Need a motion? You need a motion to pass it on to the appropriate
Yes,
bodies?
I will now entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have,
Who's second?
I heard Leota.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. We'll have roll call. Send a favorable motion or recommendation.
All right. Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Brian Jennings,
Yes.
Warren Sudock,
Yes.
Mark Flum,
Yes.
Gabe Nobby,
Yes.
Dick O'Neill,
Yes.
Leota King,
Yes.
Carl Hilton.
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay. Favorable recommendation will be sent with the update for the floodplain district. Hearing closed on the floodplain district. Okay. We will do that. Okay, next on our agenda is the public hearing for the zoning code amendment of the Airport Overlay Protection District. Hearing is now open. Gentlemen?
Thank you. Pass that one down and let everyone take one and pass them around. Do the same with that. And then for the commissioners here, I know you won't be able to see my easel, but I brought the same thing. I'm going to park it in front of Mr. Waterman since he's not here. So you guys will have paper copies of what the public will be able to see here. So I know I wouldn't be able to do both at one time, so. I'm blocking you with you. You just get them all, both copies.
Both copies?
Yeah, there's two. There's the stapled set, stapled set, and then that one.
Single?
And then a single. Yep.
Oh, where's the single?
Here's the single. And then-
Ed's Bogart them all.
Okay.
There you go.
Are you doing cord?
Good, good, Mark. Good.
The single, that's the single.
So these are some extras, some extras. Yeah, you'll need one of each. Yep.
One of each.
There we go. And extras here. Put them up here. What the two sheets of paper that you have here are, one is a exhibit graphic of the airspace that was developed and with the airspace map. The other one is of the land use map. This is something that the Bill, Mr. Harrell, and several of us have worked through for going on 3 years now to work on and revise. And then at the last meeting when Gene and I came and met with the commission, you guys asked for the revised exhibit, which is this exhibit here, which is what I'm showing here, which is gives the overall boundary. With some of the stuff that Bill and I worked through just recently is an online tool to help expedite the review of online tools of the airspace review for height restrictions, and anything within that red teardrop shape, football stadium looking shape will be the things where Bill will institute the online tool to review to see if it actually needs to be reviewed for FAA airspace. So we're here to answer any questions you may have, any questions that the public may have. Spent a lot of time and investment with the community getting this revised to this point, but want to make sure we're here to answer any questions that you guys may have on either the airspace or the land use proposal.
Yeah, question. A significant portion of this goes into Wayne County. Will you guys be meeting with them to adopt
Correct.
this as well?
We work with Wayne County, with the airport up there as well. So once the zoning ordinance is adopted here, I'm gonna march it up there and get it approved, but it's gotta go through all the agencies here in Fayette County first. It almost touches Henry County as well, but it's just outside of that. And for everyone's knowledge, what you see here in the red and the shape and the airspace is a federal document. So the FAA is protecting this airspace. The situation is, though, on a local permit, you're not complying and you're not taking the federal regulations into the local permit review. So on a federal level, this is all being done already, but if building permits aren't reviewed in accordance with the FAA regulations, then there's no way to know if you're complying with the federal height restrictions as it is.
Yeah, mistakes can happen.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, it can. I mean, it could be something as simple as a 4-foot chain link fence next to the airport, or it could be something as simple as, 10-story building located on, industrial park, 80-foot tall industrial stack or something located in, in the industrial park. So all of these things just keep the airport protected from their airspace, from encroachment. The land use map, which is a little fuzzy, I will apologize. This thing has been developed about 3 years ago, and the only copy of it that was in my office was a paper copy, so I've had to scan it and reprint it. So what we're gonna have to do is, once you guys have approved it here, we're gonna remove the draft stamp from it and then reprint this with a new aerial, new image to make it clean. But we'll reprint that, but until this was adopted, until it passes this point, I hadn't revised it.
Okay, and if, once it's adopted, also, if you can have your GIS people then forward it to WTA so we can have that layer on the county GIS.
Correct, yeah, my company's worked with WTH and other communities and other counties to make it as simple as possible for the plan reviewer to expedite the plan review, to make it a burdensome process. So my GIS department's worked with WTH numerous times.
Yeah, so this will give people an opportunity to use the county GIS on the assessor's webpage to see whether or not where these areas are located.
Will this map show any county roads where you get a better idea of what we really are
I can
talking
revise
about
it. If
here?
you guys would rather have the aerial removed and put in a road map, I
That's
can
what-
do that if
That's
it's
what I
easier.
personally would
Well,
use.
we'll be able to lay that over than
Yeah,
having
okay.
this over the GIS anyway.
Okay, yeah, I figured you probably could.
Yeah, so we'll be able to do that, and what we could do then is in the surveyor's office, in my office, what we can also do is we can use a plotter to
Okay.
print copies that are really gonna emphasize the roads also,
Okay.
to call the roads out.
Mark, you had brought that up last month when we were here, and at the scale we're at and the size we're at, I mean, we're impacting a large portion of it. So if I put all the roads in, it'd be numerous. But we can,
Yeah.
if you'd rather have it that way, we can do that instead of an image. It's easy. It's half a dozen one, 6 the other for me, whether I do an aerial or a county road map for myself for the print copy for you guys.
Okay.
Also in the land use drawing is the noise sensitive area. The noise sensitive area is that yellow shape in the very center of that. That noise sensitive area is Indiana code. So the Indiana Tall Structures Act, which is what provides airspace protection for airports on a state level, also provides noise sensitive protection from encroachment upon that. So that's the boundary within that accordance with Indiana code. So, all these regulations that we're presenting today are not new. They are FAA regulations, advisory circulars, or Indiana code, state codes. So we're not asking for anything that's not already a federal regulation, advisory, or state code.
Another quick question. You said that there's some height restrictions. How do you know exactly what those are? Will Bill know those?
He will,
As
to
they
an
go out,
extent. What you do, each one of these zones in the map that you've got is, this one, it's a little bit more detailed. The easy thing about it is if you're in this red area, if Bill plugs in, it takes what, 10, 15 seconds? Latitude, longitude, and elevation. It'll tell you whether you got to file or not, okay? So it's an online tool that the FAA developed to allow it for quick processing of data to where it tells you have to submit or not. Just because you have to submit doesn't mean it'll be declined. It doesn't mean it'll be rejected. It just means that you have to submit. So by penetrating one of those surfaces, you simply have to file. Once you file, then it'll tell you whether it's a determination of hazard or determination of no hazard. If it's a determination of no hazard, you move on, do your thing, and build your building or structure or whatever it is. If it's a determination of hazard, then it'll tell you what you must do in order to proceed. And sometimes it'll tell you, no, you can't proceed. Or sometimes it'll tell you to put a red light on top of it, or mark it with red and white paint, or something like that.
Okay, well, maybe you could explain then, say if something is, when I do my initial review, we know, say it's with the elevation it's a single-family dwelling, which is maybe, say, 25 feet at the roof. We have it right there, but since it's, say, 1,500 feet away from the runway, how that would work by then taking that out and not requiring then the filing.
What the online tool will do is it will evaluate it based on a level playing field as far as elevation goes. It'll base it off the nearest runway. So for you, it'll base it off the highest point of either the north or south runway of your paved surface. Also, the airport has a crosswind turf runway, so the highest elevation of any of the 4 runways at the airport. And then it plays it off of a lane played field from there, and it evaluates it 100 to 1. So for every 100 foot out, 1 foot up. So, and the airport owns their own property, so from a lot of that is protected already, but from the airport owning its own property. But the topography here, it does, rise and climb. There are some cases where the ground itself can be a penetration. I mean, I work in southern Indiana in Salem, and they have penetrations that are the ground around it because the airport's in a bowl. The ground itself is a penetration. So, I mean, it's not just a simple matter of a 4-foot building or a 40-foot building can be approved anywhere. It has to do with ground elevation. It has to do with proximity to the airport. So what that online tool does is it evaluates it 100 to 1, so every 100 foot out and 1 foot up, based off of a lane playing field of the airport. And then from there, it tells you whether you have to file or not. If it penetrates that 100 to 1, then it must file. That's not to say the planes are flying at that 100 to 1 slope, but that's the notification service that the FAA requires of filing. It also evaluates it on navigational aids. That online tool protects for a lot more than just height. It could protect it. It could tell you that you have to file because you're in close proximity to a navigational site. So your airport has a very low approach minimums. Cat 1 approaches at an airport are rare, and you have Cat 1 approaches at your airport. So it protects those navigation facilities because there's been a lot of money, a lot of investment in it. They don't want to be encroached upon and be impacted. They're there for safety, so they're protecting them to make sure they don't get encroached upon from developed buildings, metal structures, etc.
Okay.
Any questions from members of the board?
See if there's anybody out there.
Anything from public?
Is there anything in that red space that's already there that's not right?
There very well could be, but to this extent, this has to do with new development, new improvements, new construction. So anything that's already there is already studied, already known, or not known, and is grandfathered in.
But if they remodel it and made it taller or anything, they'd have to.
Correct. If you make improvements to it and it requires a building permit, this question was asked last month when we came in to discuss and said, what happens if someone does something or doesn't have anything? If it doesn't require a building permit, then therefore the APC is not involved. So therefore, the area plan has no jurisdiction over someone who's not filing. So if there's an issue out there that's already a penetration to the airspace, that's the airport's responsibility to go out and address it, correct it, and easement it, or whatever, mitigate it if needed. Area plan will only be involved in new building permits and only be involved in new applications. So they're not going to be responsible for going out and policing the existing structures. If there's an airspace penetration out there now, it's the airport's responsibility to go out and find it. I almost promise you there is something, okay? It's a penetration to airspace. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just simply means that you have to mark it, light it, or map it. Are the three ways to mitigate it. You stood up here.
Yes.
Okay.
I live in Wayne County. My name is Malin Whitaker. I own property exactly at the end of the runway called Newman Lake. There are two bodies of water there, or actually three, totaling about 10 acres of water. And then coming in fresh behind that at another 200 yards is the Whitewater River. As part of this ordinance, you propose to keep from putting up ponds and the like which would attract wildlife.
Construction of new ones.
My question is, you're already attracting wildlife, and so far in my 60 years, none have been sucked into any airplanes. And my property predates the use of the airport. We thought the airport was neat and wonderful, and I've been counting the rivets on the bottom of everything from Beechcraft and Cessna that fly right over my property. And indeed, my barn used to be on the old air maps as you line up with this and land here. A couple years ago, I received a letter from the airport board indicating they were going to come in and cut my trees down because they were too tall. And if this is going to pass, you're saying that the feds are making you do it, then I would consider that a taking of my property because I can't use it the way I want. You're flying over wildlife, which includes eagles that have been at my lake, horned owls, which are there at night, crows, which are protected, Canadian geese, which are protected, and a variety of other wildlife. So maybe the airport's in the wrong location, or?
Okay. So, okay.
But, I mean, what you're asking these people to do is adopt an ordinance, is my understanding.
Okay.
Okay. Then you're going to go to Wayne County, my county, and get them to adopt an ordinance.
Okay.
I can only hope you're as effective as the poo ordinance, but anyway. But you're going to get them to adopt that up there, and then the airport is going to come in, a governmental body that I have no control over because I don't live in the county, and tell me to cut my trees down, fill in my lake, and put up lights.
Okay.
Hello?
So can I talk?
I just heard you, you sure can.
So this improvement, this proposal that we're doing simply permits for new building permits. It is simply jurisdictional over new building permits. So if you were to come into Wayne County, your county, and apply to build a new pond, and this zoning ordinance was built and adopted here, then it would be under review. It doesn't impact anything that's currently ongoing. It doesn't impact anything that's already out there. So natural wildlife, natural habitats are not going to be coming in and be restricted. Just because we're doing this doesn't necessarily mean the airport has the right to come in and just clear cut your trees. This does not provide them the ability to come in and cut trees without an easement or without jurisdiction. So this just gives them authority to pass building permits based on compliance to federal airways and federal regulations. So if you were to build something 100 foot tall, if you want to put up a skyscraper on your property, then it would be under jurisdiction. If your trees are an issue, the airport would have to come out to you, negotiate a lease or an easement, trim the trees, and compensate to do that. This does not give them the ability to just go in and cut your trees because they want to.
And if I refuse?
Eminent domain is always a process that the airport can use if it's needed, but this does not impact that. This is an easement to protect for building permits and new development. This does not give them the ability to come in and just clear cut your trees because they want to.
Well, what I'd like for you to do is to write that down, get it certified, sign it in front of the mayor, and I'll keep that on file so that if somebody comes out with a chainsaw and says they're with the airport. And listen, I gotta tell you something. From my perspective, if you flew passenger and freight jets over there every night and it caused us to have an economy in Fayette and Wayne County, by God, I'll buy a set of earplugs. But in the meantime, I'm asking how it's going to affect, you're asking these people to pass something. Then you're gonna go to Wayne County, and it sounds like you've already got a tacit approval there.
No,
And-
I simply
and
said
they're
that I
going
work
to
with
pass
their.
that, and so I have some real concerns, and like I said, I predate the airport. Our property and structures and practically everything there, the newest thing is 1967, and the oldest thing goes back to 1910. So you understand why I have concerns? I mean, I'm literally, when I tell you that I've been looking at rivets on the bottom of Cessnas, I am not kidding you, since I was a kid. I used to know all the planes that came and went, and some of the people that owned them. So I'm not against the airport, I'm just saying that this seems to be a bit of a reach, and if I thought a tree was in the runway that would knock down an airplane, I'd take care of it myself. I still burn wood, but.
This does not, the zoning ordinance itself, and the zoning ordinance says what it says, it dictates, I mean, if you've got a copy of it, nowhere in the zoning ordinance does it tell you that the airport can go in and remove your trees or remove obstructions from it.
Au contraire. Go here into development standards, section K, item 1, lot and yard requirements. You're gonna draw a line down the center of the runway, 1,500 feet. Do you have that to scale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Project 1,500 feet from the tip end of the runway that's been enlarged earlier. And it goes through my barn and house, and that's 300, number of yards up there, 500 yards off the end of the runway.
Okay? So this is the noise sensitive area.
I'm not worried about the noise. I'm good on that.
The noise sensitive area is 1,500 feet either side of runway.
Okay, but we're at here. Okay, this is the county line, and that's Swirling River, and this is me. There's the lakes, and there's the line right through my house.
Okay?
Okay.
So you're more than
I'm in the red zone.
You're more than 1 nautical mile beyond the end of the runway then.
Negative. This is Fayette County line, correct?
Yeah, he's closer to
Or is that a fold in the map?
I think it's a fold in the map.
Okay, let's go back.
The Wayne County line, 2,500, about 2,000 feet north at the end of the runway.
Is it now?
Yes. Always
Okay.
has been.
So you think I'm good on that, maybe?
The rise of that ILS, what we're talking about here as far as your trees are concerning, is the instrument landing approach that
Right.
takes place at Milton, and gradually the glide slope descends
Right.
until you get on the end of the runway.
Okay.
What the FAA does, if there's a penetration of that glide slope, then they do one of two things. They raise the glide slope until it's no longer an ILS,
An ILS.
or they shut down the ILS, or they ask us to go out and talk to you
Yeah.
and negotiate financial settlement. Our people, they'll go out and clean the tree, whatever they want. It won't kill it, so we have expert people. They'll trim it down out of that glide slope airspace. At one point, about 1,500 feet off the end of that runway,
Okay.
is the middle marker, the final approach fix. It's 200 feet above the ground.
Okay.
So they have to have a 500-foot cushion above that, most places.
Well, and I don't want to have a hazard for any of the pilots or anything. And like I said, if we could get commercial aircraft flying in and out here daily, I'd be delighted, Your Honor. But, you know, my concern is that it appears to be ordinances which will relate to a taking of my
These are
property.
federal
without-
ordinances. I mean, these are federal restrictions that we have to have in place. Recently, we just got a grant to refurbish the apron in front of the hangar, or in front of the terminal building. There was 22 pages of grant requirements that came with that grant, things that we have to approve. One of them was like, if any member of the airport board or anybody is caught using cell phones, the grant goes away.
you're in violation of the grant assurances if you're texting while driving or not hands-free.
And those same technical applies to the ILS. We have to keep it clear.
You mentioned 22 pages, and this is my concern, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are a number of my neighbors and like that couldn't attend, and we are in that zone, and we're not eager to fill out 22 pages worth of
And you're not
information
We're not
to
gonna require them
put
to
up
do
a
anything.
lean-to on the barn.
There's
so.
nothing on, no, you're.
What, if you apply to build a building permit right now, and I don't know what Wayne County's process is, when I mentioned that I work with Wayne County, I work with the Richmond Municipal Airport, which is in Wayne County.
Right, yeah.
So, and they have zoning in their area to protect for their airport. Just recently, there was a building permit that was issued in Wayne County for a building just across the county line that did not review.
You know all about it.
Yes, it did not review and based on the airport compliance, okay? So the gentleman who did the development came to the airport because he knew the airport was there and said, is there any issues here? I know the airport's there, do I have any issues? He had to file, it was under strict review, and we had to provide 2 alternates and mitigate some objects in order to be allowed to proceed. If he hadn't done his own due diligence and came across the county line and asked, then he would have moved on and no one would have ever done anything. But there's a very likelihood that depending on what type of building he built, it could have been an issue to this airport, and they would have had to go in and tear it down. Federal regulations require that if you don't file, they don't care whether you're in Ohio or Indiana, whether you're in Wayne County or Fayette County, they don't care. If it's an issue and it's in violations of federal regulations, they have the right to go in and remove it. But existing trees, existing ponds, existing structures are in and grandfathered in, it's the airport's responsibility to mitigate it. What the ordinance does is based on, for area plans, the review of new building permits. If it doesn't require a building permit, then it will never be reviewed in those ordinances. So in other words, if the airport needs to trim your trees, they're still required to go get an easement, or acquire the property, or acquire the easement, and negotiate terms to acquire it. If terms can't be reached, then they have to use eminent domain. But this zoning document doesn't give them the right to go in and just trim it because they want to. And I'm being recorded now, so I don't know if you want that as much of a
We
in
like
writing.
signing anything. In court, it's always signed statements are better, but I appreciate that, and the noise doesn't bother me, gentlemen. I mean, you know, fire up the jets and helicopters and whatever the hell you need to do to build an economy here. But my concern is that, you know, that the property is there, and specifically this addresses ponds and trees and the lines down the center of my barn and so on. So, you hope you can appreciate why I might have a concern.
Corey, you're at all the airports you deal with, have you ever had this as a problem? Trees?
Trees?
Yeah.
I mean, there are trees get trimmed by airports all the time.
Okay.
On airport property, off airport property. But again, that's the airport's responsibility to have to go out and identify, mitigate, and relocate, or mitigate or trim or cut.
All right.
The area plan's whole purpose in the process is review of building permits. If it's not something that requires a building permit, then Bill will not have to have jurisdiction
That's all
over the
we're
process. It'll be on the airport and myself to go out and identify and mitigate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
all
do you
we
need a building permit to plant a tree?
No.
No.
So if I plant a tree and 25 years from now, it's in this
Then
ordinance has nothing to do with it. What we're doing here
What we're
tonight has
doing here
nothing to
tonight.
do, has nothing to do with it.
Then you have to worry about Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or me.
Yes.
I might mention to Mr. Whitaker.
Yeah.
When our ILS, Instrument Landing System, was sold as 200 feet minimum, it's now 250.
So, and we can talk about this,
Yes,
you
but
know.
that was raised in order not to obstruct anybody or make anybody mad or do anything like that. We want to be good neighbors, and
Or they could have went, or they could, if they could have required them to go in and trim the trees
Yes.
or remove the
So
obstacles.
God bless you, I'm serious. I mean, if you
but
can
we
land
don't want
freight
to bother
there,
anybody. We just want to,
knock yourself
we want a
out.
good airport for the city of Connersville, southeastern Indiana.
All right.
That's what we're trying to do.
Well, I
And
appreciate it.
the federal regulations that Gene was talking about, the 22 pages of documents, requires that the airport and the community do everything within their power to protect the airport from encroachment, which is what we're doing here. All the zoning, all these items and all these zones are developed off of federal aviation regulations, advisory circulars, and requirements.
Corey, now what's gonna happen? So if these guys pass it, then the city has to pass an ordinance in their part, the county has to pass an ordinance, and then Wayne County has to pass an ordinance.
So you guys are joint city-county.
It's joint city county, so if it's, well, regardless, favorable recommendation or otherwise, it goes to the commissioners and then also the city council.
Okay,
So you would both adopt it.
Mr. Baker will design an ordinance for you.
Actually, I'm going to present the ordinance itself, because I have the copy of everything with the ordinance. I just need to double check some of the language to make sure I have the correct reference to the city ordinance that adopts the zoning code. So I have one for the commissioners, I have one for the council. And I already have, the members notice, I already have the signature page for both already attached to this. So it's, all that'll be ready.
Well, I just want to know for my city council, so.
Yep.
Once we would pass this ordinance, then that gives you jurisdiction to enforce it within the city limits of the airport. And once the county passes it, and then once Wayne County passes it.
And
It's a
then
trickle-out effect.
Then in Wayne County, it's their obligation.
And Wayne County, I mean, in most cases, since we're following Indiana code, federal regulations, Wayne County would not have a lot of precedent to reject the adoption of it.
It would help
I've
them
not
anyway.
seen, yeah, it would help them because under that recent building that you guys objected to as well, they realized that's where the loophole was identified, and their adoption, they didn't realize as far out as they are. Richmond Airport is not too far out either. I mean, Richmond Airport is just off the page here. It's not too far from your airspace. Their airspace, once they looked at it, actually goes into Fayette County.
Well, Wayne County didn't consider anybody when they approved that. Oh, well. But especially Fayette County. I know you're not here to.
I'm an airport guy.
Okay, all right. You're above it, is what you're saying?
No, I'm I concern myself with aviation.
And we're pretty close also with Newcastle's also.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, so.
there are airports all around you.
Nothing's got to be done.
No, you have the largest runway within probably 5 counties. 6,500 feet of runway, 100-foot wide, and an ILS.
6,500. And the category 1 ILS makes us different too than most airports in the area. There's a lot more airspace involved.
Yes. Yeah, if you didn't have a Cat 1 approach, these large areas wouldn't be on the ends. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Corey? Anything from public?
Mr. President, I move that we send a favorable recommendation on.
Okay, we have
Second.
motion and a second to send a favorable recommendation for the airport overlay ordinance. Brenda, if you do roll call.
All right. Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Brian Jennings,
Yes.
Warren Sudoff,
Yes.
Mark Flum,
Yes.
Gabe Nobby,
Yes.
Dick O'Neill,
Yes.
Carl Hilton,
Yes.
Leota King,
Yes.
all in favor?
Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
See you next week.
hearing on the airport overlay is now closed. Okay, next on our agenda is public hearing for zoning map amendment from agriculture A2 to enclosed industrial I1 for 48 and 8 on 4460 Waterloo Road. Hearing is now open.
I brought some brochures. Probably a lot of you know what the 48 is, but here's brochures, you can pass them down, telling you what our organization's all about. And to start with, my name is Jerry Terrell. I currently am serving as the chef de gare at the 48. Chef de gare is no more than the commander. But my fellow 48ers would crucify me if I didn't say I was the chef de gare rather than the commander. Our reason for being here tonight is to, and I'm forgetting, I'm here with two fellow officers of mine, Mike Kaiser and Dave Chapman. But our reason for being here is we're wanting you to take in consideration to rezone our property, as he said, it's located at 4460 Waterloo Road, from architectural to light industrial. Any questions?
Board questions for Mr. Terrell?
Well, Mr. Terrell, if you could go through and explain how your proposal is meeting the criteria for the for a rezone.
Well, we're currently have an offer on selling the building, and we no longer, if this is what, we no longer consider it feasible to have our club there. The 48, when you get time to look at the brochures, is actually, at one time was a branch off the American Legion, and you had to be actually a member in good standings with the American Legion for years to be a member of the 48. But that has since changed. I don't know exactly, probably 10, 15 years ago, we broke out on our own, and we are actually a member we are a veterans organization, and we, like I say, we just no longer deem it feasible to have our building, and we have an offer to sell it, and we're looking into selling it. That's what your answer, if that answers your question.
Is the sale of the building contingent on the rezoning?
Yes, it does.
The people that's wanting to buy it, what are their intentions?
Well, I could tell you, but I have a lady here, Miss Martha Mason, probably could do a better job informing you what their intentions are.
My name's Martha Mason, and I work with a gentleman from China, Linghua Wang. He owns Shanghai Better Arts and Crafts. He does direct import for major retailers, Walmart, Michaels, Joann's, Doris, to name a few. Hobby Lobby, actually a little bit of Hobby Lobby, not much. But what he's wanting to do is open a warehouse. He will import his product by the container. With craft products. Products that really nobody needs, but they use them to enjoy making arts and crafts. They would come in already prepackaged. And from there he would do a pick and pack. He came over to Connorsville. Why Connorsville? Because I've worked with him for about 15, 20 years now. I've been knowing him. And I thought if we could get any jobs, people to be employed, it was worth him coming to our town. Plus our town is a nice town and he would like it. Basically what he would do is import a container in. He has not established his market yet, but he would be selling on the internet. He would be selling to small retailers. Small retailers cannot afford to import a container of goods. This would give them a competitive pricing along with major retailers, to be honest. And the warehouse would be a pick and pack area. It would start out probably in the first year under 5 people or under. He would like to have a business for 30 years here at least. And I would say, depending on how busy he gets, would depend on how many people he would hire. It could be 30. It could be more than that. I have no idea. I don't know that until he gets the business established. As far as traffic coming in, this size of product, a container holds an awful lot of it. A lot. I don't anticipate that there would be a lot of traffic from it. Shipping outward would be by UPS or FedEx. I guess that's about all I know.
The containers come in by rail or by truck?
They would come in, by boat, probably to the
Yeah.
East Coast would be my guess, and they would come by truck. A container, he would probably be shipping 40-foot containers. It might be a high 40-foot container, which is a little bit higher than a
Yeah.
40-foot container. There's a high and a regular size 40-foot. There would be actually no manufacturing there. There might be a repack every now and then. No manufacturing. It's just, he was looking for a facility that would be 6,000 to 10,000 square feet. And it just happens, I had a hard time finding one. And we found the 40 and 8, and it looks like it could serve the purpose. Any other questions? He owns a factory. His manufacturing factory is in Shanghai. He employs anywhere from 50 to 200 people, depending on the season it's in. When demand's high, you hire more people in, and when it's low, you don't.
Bill, with this, if this took off and he wanted to expand, what's the chances of giving an expansion there because of the flood, the river and the floodplain problem?
There's two things that come into play. Is the number one is if there's any improvement, whether it's remodeling or any addition that exceeds, well, even a remodeling on the interior that exceeds 50% of the property value, they're then required to file with DNR and FEMA. Okay, any addition is going to would require a floodplain construction permit. That would include even paving over any new paved surfaces, because this all gets into the floodplain regulations that we ran through earlier. So it's really limited on any type, the amount of improvements that could take place on the property.
The other thing that he has said right out, if he wants to expand, if his business really gets going, he's going to buy more property and build. He was wanting to build now, but we couldn't find the property to build on. And we couldn't find another building to buy. So right now we're at the 40 and 8, trying to buy it. If his business really grows, he will buy more property, and he'll rebuild.
Well, just curious, what's the key, what's the reason for wanting to buy right now? Why wouldn't he just lease until he made sure it was a go and then go from there?
Because in China, you're not allowed to buy land. In the United States, you can buy land. And that's very important to him.
Okay, that's his reason.
It's very important to him. We talked about leasing.
Okay, all right.
It's buying land.
Okay.
I'm just going to be honest with you. When I first looked at this, the first thing that jumps up at me is spot zoning. This is spot zoning. Spot zoning is usually not a good idea. And then as I read through some of the rest of this, the floodplain issue. Is this buyer aware of the situation of the floodplain? Does he realize?
Yes, he is.
There's no city water there. It's a septic system. And if this body approves this change from agricultural to industrial, no telling what might move in there. That's what I have to be thinking about as a member of this board. Certainly, it's a great idea for this company to move into this area. But unfortunately, this is not the Redevelopment Commission, and this is not the Economic Development Group. This is area planning. And that gives us some very heavy responsibility. And as I read through the staff findings here, I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot here that I can support for this spot zone of A2 to I won personally. So I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to try to understand why I should vote to do this. But I'll just be honest with you, I have a real problem with rezoning, spot zoning this piece of property in the floodplain.
Yeah, when I read the Fayette County Emergency Management Plan here, I had a real issue with this too, because this really raised a lot of concerns about that location, about the flooding. And I just see it as a problem, so, right now.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
Mr. Dan Parker is away this week at a school, and he asked me to come and speak on behalf of economic development. We need to look at the whole picture here. Number one, in the area, you have a mini warehouse on the left. I don't know how many feet from the 40 and A. On the east side, you have McDivitt's, which runs a wonderful business. I certainly enjoy it. I buy tons of stuff over there. I understand that it may still be kind of spot zoning, but it's kind of business in that little circle. Secondly, the property that belongs to the veterans is not suitable for much of anything else other than a church maybe, because of where it is. I think it's 10 acres.
Yes.
I talked a little bit about Mr. Wang. We spent 17 days in China and developed a relationship and have a sister city in China. We keep in communication with China, and we've had at least, this is the fourth approach to bring a Chinese company here. Now, you might look at me and say, what's the big deal? We're going to bring a Chinese company. Franklin, Seymour, Shelbyville, they all have Asian parks with 400 and 500 people work in those parks because they got that first Chinese company. To get a Chinese company here and have the connections we already have over there, plus Mr. Wang's connection, and believe me, I know him and he has connection, I think we have an opportunity to put other people on the 58 acres, and that's where I wanted to put Mr. Wang, but it wasn't in the cards to do this. So this is what he chose, and it looked like a pretty good fit. About remodeling, I think if he expanded, when we have worked with him, he would actually go to an industrial site and build a new thing once this gets off the ground. Rather than look at this as a big warehouse operation, it's a mini warehouse operation. He's going to bring in one container, package it, and ship it out UPS. There's a lot of that going on in Connersville right today in neighborhoods. People are doing this through the internet. There's all kinds of internet sellers. On top of that, if you allow this to happen, they have been a 501c3. They don't pay any taxes on that 10 acres of the building. The county will get taxes on that building. Mr. Wang is so proud to own property in the United States. I'm sure he'll keep it in tip-top shape. It'll be a park like it because he is so proud to own something. I took one of our Chinese friends to breakfast at Maggie's one morning, and we came up and turned the corner, and Mary works at Grandview School, lives in that White House over here. He said, stop the car, stop the car. I stopped the car and he got out and began to take pictures over there. And I said, what are you taking pictures of? That beautiful home. Because in China, everybody lives in a little tiny apartment, straight up 80 stories. And they have a washer and dryer on every other floor because they don't have enough electricity. And that's why when you get someone like Mr. Wang and he sees 10 acres and he sees this building, to him, that's a beautiful sight. And he's going to keep it beautiful. I would like for you to consider all those things when you do this. I've heard this discussion before many times. It's too bad that you can't put a stipulation, and maybe you can, as long as Mr. Wang keeps his warehouse there and operates it, it remains this type of zoning. And if he leaves, it reverts back to whatever it is today, I think it's ag. But to have that building zoned ag, I don't know what you would do with it out there today. It'll sit there. Veterans will not be able to get their money out of it. They'll be hurting. And it'll just sit there. So I'd ask you to consider it. I have several pictures of the products he makes. I'd like you, if you will, take the time to pass them along. Some of these pictures are in China where he produces it. It shows a picture of his factory in China. You can see the way he keeps it. He's been in business 30 years. This is the materials he uses. This shows are good, all small, tiny things. But that will give you an idea of what we're talking about. It's very small things that could be easily manufactured in your home that people buy at Hobby Lobby or these other stores. But economic development would like to have this opportunity to develop this first relationship with a Chinese company. We've worked at it for 4 years, and this is the first time that we've been actually able to put somebody in here. We had, as you know, the guy that was going to put all the gaskets and things in, and he got into a personal issue in China. They had another company, Good Times Technology, and they went to Indianapolis. And this would be a great start, and Mr. Wang has promised us that he will help develop relationships in China and bring more companies here. So I'd ask you please, on behalf of economic development, to consider it. I think I'd like, if you would, the real estate lady to speak. She handled the sale here.
Hi, I'm Cindy Perez. I work with American Heritage Realty here in Connersville, and I've been representing the 40 and 8. When Mr. Wang came to see the property, I want to tell you the reason that he chose that, I feel, over some of the other properties that he was looking at is because he thought it was beautiful. You know, their woods, their river, and he thought it was really lovely, and that's where he wanted to have a piece of land. Right now what he's talking about is adding a door on the end so that he can load in and load out these little wood crafty things. We think it would probably decrease the traffic. It's been used as a banquet facility, it's been used as a bingo hall. Lots of people in and out of there. There was a bar on the end. I think some of the neighbors were concerned about the bar that was on the end there and the drinking that took place. So obviously that wouldn't be an issue anymore. I certainly understand the concern about the floodplain. The river is right there. I mean, you can sit on the deck and watch it. It's lovely. Talking to Mr. Terrell and the other officers, they said they have seen the water up to the steps in the back, but they've never seen it in the building. The well is tested every 3 months, I believe. It's had to by law, and it's a very good well. Septic is the same. It's had to be, pumped regularly and taken care of. And I believe Mr. Wang, it will continue that kind of maintenance of the property. It's spot zoning, and I've looked at that comprehensive report. I've seen the pictures of the buildings that are sitting in the middle of nowhere that used to be whatever they used to be. But I don't think this property sits in the middle of nowhere. When I stand in that parking lot, I can see McDivitt's, I can see the old Cackle House, whatever that storage facility is called now. Just a mile away, I can get to the industrial park, State Road 1, the airport. It's very close to a lot of other businesses and things. In the comprehensive report, it does say that that is the part of the county they expect the most growth in the next decade. If you look at where they expect the business areas to be. The farm field right across the way is general business. And it's looked at as someplace that will probably be grown into by our county. So I don't think that we're really out there with the spot planning. I think we're right in line with what is happening. I think you have to be vigilant when building permits come up. You know, you'll need to look at that very seriously. But I don't think that this buyer is looking to do anything that would be outside the realm of something good for our county. Bringing in business, employing people, keeping a property maintained that might go vacant, because none of us like to look at those vacant business buildings. So, and it would go back on the tax rolls. I went to the Indiana, I've got it written down here, Indiana Department of Local Government Finance, and did an estimate on taxes. There is a 3% cap on taxes for business. So it said $4,100 to $5,700 per year in taxes for that. So that's not anything to laugh at. I think that's about all I have. Everybody else has covered everything else. Do you have any questions for me? Because I'd be glad to answer anything that I know.
Yeah. I was just waiting for somebody else since I
Okay.
already spent some time. It sounds like this particular buyer, there's a possibility that sometime in the future might be moving out of there and going to a bigger place, wanting to build to a bigger place. So what you're asking us to do is to spot zone this to enclosed industrial, one. Then he leaves, then who comes in there? Whoever wants to that can fit into that category. You raise an interesting thing about general business in that area. I just wonder why you didn't ask for a general business zone there.
We thought light industrial was the most appropriate for warehouse. That's why.
Well, let me point something out. Under general business in our zoning code, one of the permitted activities under general business is storage warehouse.
Okay.
And a general business is a much less innocuous type of zoning, I think, than an closed industrial. That's just my opinion as an attorney. Other folks may disagree, but it would appear to me that it would be two things. It would fit, first of all, fit into that category, I believe. Strong argument that it would. And secondly, it would be much less of a so-called spot zone. Because, you know, spot zoning, to justify a spot zone, there must be a strong argument that the facility would be a great benefit to the general welfare of the community. That's the basic way you overcome some of the other problems against spot zoning. If you can show a benefit, a strong benefit to the welfare of the community. Well, I put that in just for your consideration, and also I think when you get to spot zoning, general business in that area would be much less of a spot zone, in my opinion. Now, I got to qualify that because I'm not a surveyor and I'm not a realtor. But yeah, but just from what I know about the neighborhood, it would seem to fit more easily.
We just were looking at the definitions.
Sure.
And it seemed to fall into that definition.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, this hearing tonight is for industrial. So the only way to make that work, if you wanted to consider general business, would you come back and try it again?
It'll be contingent upon, because the Area Plan Commission has three options. It's the favorable recommendation to the county commissioners, unfavorable recommendation, or no recommendation. So those go before. It'd really be contingent upon any future action decided would really be contingent upon what the county commissioners would do. It'll probably be next Tuesday. So if you get an unfavorable recommendation, that doesn't mean it's a stop.
Right,
Yeah.
right. If, okay.
Yeah, because they can overturn an unfavorable recommendation, just like the plan commission can have a favorable recommendation, and the city council or the county commissioners could reject the favorable.
Right. Now, and something the mayor had said, there is also an option for a letter. Am I correct? They could go with a spot.
That, yeah, it's, Indiana doesn't let you do where you adopt it, then as soon as this use stops, there's no sunset provision with Indiana, you can't do that.
Okay, so there is no
You
letter.
can, yeah, you cannot do a sunset. At X point, it reverts back. It takes a new legislative action to go back to the original zoning.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So speaking for myself, speaking from a personal standpoint, I would certainly love to see this happen. I'd like to see your group be able to sell this property. But as a member of this commission, I don't feel like I'd be doing my duty to give a favorable recommendation to rezone this to industrial, this area, that area. Personally, that's how I feel. But general business, that might be something to consider.
Okay. Anyone else have questions, comments? Yes.
I'm Carrie Steele. I'm on the Board of Zoning Appeals, the meeting that meets after this. I'm sitting out in the hallway, and I guess part of what I want to make sure is clear to everybody listening is that the Area Plan Commission, in my very humble opinion, has absolutely no choice by the charge you're charged with planning. And in my opinion, you have no choice but to send an unfavorable recommendation because this is spot zoning. And because not anything to do with the character of the applicant or the willingness to bring in businesses. I hate that we're, constantly a no county, but at the end of the day, we're giving an area and industrial zoning. Once they leave, which I think is inevitable, I think it will be profitable, I think he will grow, and I think those are all amazing things. The thing is at the end of the day, then you have a building that's zoned industrial. Just about anything can happen there. There's no real septic system there. It floods, it's on a well. There's just a lot of things wrong with that as an industrial area. So with that said, one of the things that was discussed is that most of the growth is going out that way, is one of the things that the realtor said. And I think that, again, that's all very positive. Maybe we could, and I just kind of whispered in one of the applicant's ears about, rather than even general business, why wasn't this looked at as a special exception? They're almost asking for a special exception.
There wasn't a special exception for this type of storage use. I mean,
So even as a general business, this warehouse, as it is, there's no way they can get a special exception.
No, there isn't one for this particular type of use in the special
Okay,
exception.
but they could rezone to general business.
That would be an option, because that's what the Cackle House did. Well, for the storage warehouse, they went through as a general business rezone.
Okay, because I will tell you, sitting back there, I mean, it just makes so much more sense to make this, I mean, they are basically begging for a special exception. They want to write a letter, they say they don't want to do this, fine, you can send it back to whatever. Is there not a way at all to make that fit, to make what they're doing fit? That to me, I mean, that's where, sitting back there, it just seems like such a no-brainer. But no way.
There isn't a special exception it would be for this. Because the warehouse use, there's the warehouse use within the industrial district, which is a permitted use. Okay, the storage use that Mr.
But in A2, as a special exception, I understand it has to be listed there. Is there nothing listed as the possible exception under A2? Because when we wrote those out, I remember it being pretty much anything other than, agriculture could happen in an A2.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just surprised that it's not there.
Yeah, because, there's, some of those special exceptions are really limited with some of the districts they're in. And there isn't there is not a special exception for the storage.
Okay. Well, again, I hate that I feel so strongly about the fact that you should not zone this as an industrial area, but because I think it's a wonderful opportunity. But on the other hand, I don't feel like it's the Area Planning Commission's place to ensure that building gets sold. Again, I think it's the community's place. It's a hard spot, but I'd encourage you to really think about the fact that once they leave, it just leaves a void. Thanks for listening.
So, where we're at, I guess.
Well, it's don't know if there's,
Yeah, I'll go. I agree just about 100% what she said. I talked about 6 different people that live immediately there. I live out there. And that are adjacent to it. Mr. Hurst, he called it, we talked about it. And no one, they were strongly opposed to giving industrial exception that you had on the paper. So we're not, the people who live there are not in favor of changing zoning law. And I think the lady hit the nail right on the head, and that's what the neighbor is. It was wonderful to hear that someone's gonna come in, wasn't gonna ask for a tax abatement.
Yeah.
If you got all the entire store.
No speaker back here.
Question. When these zoning things happen like this, it's ag now, but obviously when it was built, there was no zoning.
correct.
Does this keep the people on 40 and 8 from putting a new club or bar or restaurant in there? Could it not be used for its original purpose for which it was built because of the dumb ag zoning? Would it keep from that too?
Well, it's a grandfathered use, as we had those discussions.
That was a nonprofit club. I mean, you want, depends on what area you're splitting, doesn't it?
Yeah, like I said, it's still clubs like that, they're allowed in certain districts, but that was, like I said, that predated the adoption of the zoning code. So, once again, we get into the grandfather thing.
How long is the zoning law good?
This one has been in place since, the current one since 1993.
We say, okay, we'll give you.
That building was built in '76.
Yeah, but what happens is once a use changes with the grandfathering, it could end up losing the grandfathering. So as long as the use stays, it's good.
A couple of points. They are not a 501c3, by the way. They're a club or a fraternal organization, much like the country club was. I was the treasurer of the country club, and it was still in existence, as we had to pay property taxes. Country club did have to pay property taxes. I paid. So they're not a 501c3, they're a fraternal organization. Now, this has got so many red flags, it's unbelievable. I just really hope that you vote against it. I'm Ralph Eldridge, Howard Eldridge's son. I was raised out there. You know, all of the other businesses you're talking about, McDivitt's and the Cackle House, that's agricultural business. It's an agricultural area. And if you want to redo the whole map and it all be industrial from Erie Avenue on, fine, let's talk about that. But goodness, do not spot zone this property, please. Please do not do that.
Yes, sir.
How does business like that affect the tax base around? I mean, it's general business. Obviously, they're going to be taxed more, but properties, next door, down the road, does that all stay the same? Or
This body, we can't answer that question because we don't have the data. The questions like that are asked with the assessors, your appraisers. People actually have the expertise in really dealing with property values, understanding what the effect on other property values or that property value should something happen.
If you do go to general business, especially if they do sell it, then that goes away. Everybody has
Passing it on with no recommendation.
I got a question for Leonard, since Dan Parker can be here.
Sir,
Well, he had a
if
question.
you could come up closer because I really couldn't hear your question. If you could come up to the front, please. And go ahead and give us your name, please.
Carl Sizemore. I bought the property right next to it.
Okay.
The 40 and 8. And just, you know, I have no problem with the guys moving in here whatsoever. General business, great. Sounds better than industrial. If you only got 5 people out there, I don't think the septic or the well is going to be a big deal. Because they had hundreds of people out there for bingo, and it was never an issue. And so 5 people working, maybe 10 people, whatever, that's not going to be a big deal to me. But, you know, I don't want my taxes raised. I own 11 acres right next door, and that's the only reason I'm, you know, come down is to make sure that we could get that business for the community. But it needs to be general business and maybe an exception. You know, let's go with, okay, well, if you sell it, then it goes right back to agricultural.
Okay.
Because we don't want, like I say, we know what's going to be there right now. But I agree with you. What, you know, what if somebody comes in and destroys that property with something else? So,
Well, it's like in reference to the one part, making it go back.
yeah.
But as I mentioned previously, is we're prohibited in Indiana to put these type of sunset riders on it.
Okay.
At X period of time, it reverts, or should this use stop with this rezone, it reverts back to the previous zoning. We're prohibited from doing that, because, as I mentioned, is the zoning map, just like when you adopt the zoning code, or the previous
Just
amendments,
becomes that.
they require legislative action. When something requires legislative action, you're changing the codes. It's just like when the state legislature does something, they're changing the Indiana codes. So in order to change back to, they would be to change back to another zoning, but change back to agriculture, it takes going through this process again with another legislative action. Now you can go back. I don't know if everybody remembers when we, ethanol madness with the out west of town.
Yeah.
Well, the Area Plan Commission, we had to go back through, the Area Plan Commission had to go back through the process and rezone. And then it had to go to the county commissioners then to adopt zoning it back to the A2. So that's way, you're limited doing it that way in Indiana.
All right. And then the taxes were just a matter of the assessor,
Yeah.
if they wanted to raise it, they could. If
Well,
not, they wouldn't.
Because what I think it is they're zoned at something different. It's also the actual basic land use. I would be surprised if, say, a residential property next to it, because yours is residential, yours is zoned as residential, you have a maximum amount of value with that. So I don't think that's an actual concern, but, you know, don't hold me to it, because that's a question for someone like the assessors to answer.
Well, the only questions I have. Thank you very much.
His property is residential, it'd be 1%.
Yeah.
On the acre around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually,
The
no.
only way it would change is if the land value changed.
I got a question for you're representing the lady, the one behind. Yes, you're representing the person from China that wants to buy this.
I am.
Did he give you any kind of time frame when he feels like this is gonna, you know, like in 6 months he'll know if this is gonna be really a viable business or not, or?
He's in this for the long haul. He's also not gonna sell that building for 30 years. Even if he would go build another building, he's not gonna sell that building.
Okay.
He's just not. I know that.
Okay, so Mr. Baker, this is a question for you. If we do this as a general business, which they would have to come back later and ask for general business. If we did it for general business, let's say, and then we give him a time frame, 1 year, that business is either go or it's not gonna go, then he's gotta move out of there and put his business elsewhere. He can still own that as a private property. That goes back to A2 then.
No, I won't recommend for him to do that. I will not recommend for him to buy a building and you give him a year. I can't do that. That's
I'm
a
just
bad
throwing it out there.
business
I'm
decision
just
for me.
throwing it out
Well,
there.
well, this gets back to what we're prohibited from doing. It's
Okay.
the only thing that you have with that, with a, say, a time frame is a special exception. You get a special exception, you have 2 years to initiate the project. If it doesn't,
Okay.
it's a similar thing we also have with subdivisions.
Okay.
One thing, if you don't rezone it, if general business or whatever, how can they sell it? I mean, it's not agriculture. I've been in the 48 for years. There's nobody gonna do with it.
See, yeah, it's not agriculture, it's already technically a business.
It's not a farm.
It's ag right now.
It's in a floodplain.
It's in a floodplain. Water's my problem.
That's what you have insurance for.
He actually does, he's paying cash.
Yeah, but the government pays for that insurance. Go on.
He's paying cash for this property.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care that it's in a floodplain. He wants the property more for the property. It fits his business needs where he's just going to come in, bring the 40-foot boxcar in there or whatever it is, take the stuff out, it's already packaged, put it in envelopes and mail it.
Mm-hmm. I understand what he's doing.
If general business works for that, I understand your point on the rezoning, but he loves the property. I mean, it's 11 acres along the river. If you're in China and you can't buy anything, it's...
Well, I'll be honest, we looked at several properties, and we couldn't find a property here. And, you know, I hate to recommend him to go build it in South Carolina where he owns property at, you know. I would like to get him to stay here. For one thing, he trusts me. And he's not going to come over here to live at this point. It's going to be myself and people I hire doing it. He will visit a lot, but he won't be living here.
You know, something none of us have thought about, since we're in this dilemma, it's zoned. Today, we could put a dance hall in there without doing anything, right? Could have put a bar back in there.
The continuation of the existing
Don't
use
have to be
could
them, it
continue.
can be anybody put a bar in there, right?
Continuation of the use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I respect what the neighbor said, I wouldn't want a manufacturing firm next to me. But when you consider, it could go back to a bingo place or a bar or something like that. And I guess I have a little advantage because I know Mr. Wang, and I know how Chinese people feel about American land. It's precious. They never let anything touch it. And it, you know, if it takes advertise again and go back to general business, I think he would go along with that, don't you? If that's what you think we should do, I'm here, like I say, we now have an economic development director, and for the last year, I've just been assisting him. He came to me and he said, you know, help Mr. Wang because I got to go to school. And I said, well, I'll go in there and do the best I can. And of course, I represent the city, and that's out in the county, so I don't go out of my place here. But anything that helps the county helps the city, anything helps the city helps the county, because we're all together in this. Believe it or not, Collinsville's in Fayette County. So if that's the case, I think we'd be willing to do that. And I think Dan would go along with us. Do you think Mr. Wayne will go along with us? Maybe that's the solution here, if that's what you think we should do. And I think that's what we should do in all these issues. We ought to work together. We've got a chance here to get some jobs. We've got a chance to really build a relationship with a man in China that has a lot of relationships that could really help us down the road. I think he's going to come here just as quick as he can. I don't think he's wasting any time about it. Do you?
No, he will ship as soon as we can get the building and get it.
He'll be in business in just a few months. But if that's what it takes, we're willing to work with him. And I'm sure Dan is, because Dan's been in my office 10 times. We've been discussing this. Mr. Wang's been there. We've worked it over. You know, we've tried to. And I don't know how we got on this. Maybe, did you recommend we go for light industrial?
Well, what it was is went through is the industrial, it's the as it was described with
I mean,
the.
did you recommend to him when they went down there to you? I wasn't there that day.
Yeah, when they went down for it, what was described to me as an industrial warehouse. Because it's taking manufactured products and then repackaging manufactured products.
Doesn't it take industrial warehouse from any warehouse?
Okay, if you're referring to the things like the Cackle House, that's a storage warehouse, those are actually allowed in the general business, just like the one that you owned up on 30th Street.
Well, I thought so.
Yeah, those type of warehouses, something that's really a storage warehouse. But like I said, the issue on the interpretation was the fact that we're dealing with manufactured products that are coming in, repackaged, and then shipped.
That's what you think we ought to do. I think we all be willing, people that are involved in this. Jerry, that would help Jerry. He'd sell his building, and help her, she'll sell. And Mr. Lang will come here, and everybody will be happy. I'm for it.
I think everybody will be happy.
John's one I found actually, you know, we're just, like I say, it's no longer feasible for us to have the building.
I agree.
If we can't sell the building, building's just gonna sit out there and deteriorate and fall down. I'm just gonna tell you, that's what's gonna happen. Because we no longer can afford the building. We're, I don't know, Dave, what are we, 30 members strong?
At the present time, I think it's closer to 25.
There you go. You can't do it on 25 members, no way. I mean, maintain a building that, and it is a beautiful building, like everybody said. I don't think any of you would dispute that.
Yeah.
It's a well-maintained building. And I keep hearing this well and septic. It does have a septic system, which we pump it 2 or 3 times a year. And the well has to be, myself personally, well, David taking over the chores, well, I had a hip replaced, but every 3 months we have to send to the state. We have to send a sample and to the lab in Muncie, and they send it to the state. So it's no problem there.
I agree with the well and the septic is no problem, I don't think, because that's no different than a family living there.
Yeah.
The well's in the aquifer, you got more water than.
Yeah, it's, no problem with that, so.
John, how confident are you this would fit in the general business category?
Well, I think there's a very strong argument that it would fit, and that would be something that the planning commission would have to consider, as well as the legislative bodies, to see if it's sufficient for that.
So John,
as you know, there's a lot of gray in these interpretations. You just have a line, and you don't have a lot of annotation below it, so you have to fill in the meaning almost yourself. So I would say there's a much better chance of it being rezoned local general business than industrial. That was the point I was trying to make earlier. Just a matter of spot zoning, a so-called spot zone of a local business is much less easier for people to go along with than industrial.
If I could say something else on the floodplain, I researched it a lot, and that water's never been in that building. It's been pretty high. I've saw it pretty high myself, but it's never been in that building. I did hear one time, and they never confirmed this, that it was up in the parking lot, but nobody ever confirmed that. I've never saw it in the parking lot. I saw it on that east side where our deck is, real high there. But I'll guarantee you there's never been any, I'm sure there's never been any water in that building.
has the bank has it eroded much over time?
Not so much behind us, because it's pretty straight there. Now,
Up there by that curve.
up there by that curve where there's a bend, yeah, where there's a bend in it, yes. It erodes really bad there every time.
That's getting close to the road.
Yeah, it's coming out real close to
The
the,
county's put concrete there.
yeah, they put a bunch in there, but it didn't help very much, I don't think. I watch it all the time, and I personally don't think it's helped a lot. But in behind our building, no, because it's pretty, the river's straight there.
It's not a straight drop off.
Yeah, right.
Okay, where you're at.
Yeah,
Slopes.
yeah.
Does it drop off at the curve?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's where the river
Okay.
bends.
That's where it bends, yeah.
All right.
When it goes by us, it's going straight.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Mr.
No.
Terrell? Comments from the public? Okay.
Let's move it on.
Any board discussion?
Well, personally, I'd like to see this thing come to life. If they're worried about the spot zoning, if Mr. Baker thinks that general business would be the more appropriate category, then I'd be in favor of them coming back with a petition for general business, and I'd be in favor of it.
Okay, so in order to move then, I would move that we send an unfavorable recommendation for this request to zone to I-1.
We have a motion?
I'll second it.
And a second? Okay, so this is for an unfavorable recommendation for the zoning change from A2 to enclosed industrial I-1. Roll call?
Okay, Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Brian Jennings,
Yes.
Warren Sudoff,
Yes.
Mark Flum,
Yes.
Gabe Nobby,
Yes.
Dick O'Neill,
No.
Carl Hilton,
No.
Leota King.
No.
3 and, no,
5 to 3. Okay.
5 to 3.
Will be forwarded an unfavorable recommendation to the county commissioners.
Okay.
43.
Thank you.
But come back with the general.
But you need to bring the general business. Come back with the general business.
Okay, at this time, the hearing for
Jared.
the zoning change at 48 is now closed. Next on our agenda is the director's report, the annual report. Bill?
Okay. Well, pass those out to everybody.
Same thing, letters and all that problem.
And that's okay, okay. But I think it's yours.
Thank you.
Thanks. You retired yet?
In addition to the director's report, I passed out to all the board members the schedule with just the meeting schedules and those activities that are associated with the Plan Commission, such as the last date of post, last day for publication and also notice to the property owners, application submission date, and advisory committee meetings. Then behind that is the full schedule, has everything such as commissioner meetings, county council meetings, the full schedule. Okay, we also have the addresses of all the board members. If there's anything needs to be corrected, let me know and I'll get everybody the corrected copy. Okay. As total with the number of permits and also the value of improvements, that was it was down from last year, but it's still up from 2012. Okay, have a list of various types of permits. It's the same number of single-family dwellings as last year, which was 11. And one of the big reasons that we're actually down is because we didn't have a major a Class 1 project as large as the remodeling of Lozada. A big part of last year, so that's an $8 million improvement. So there's a big difference. Okay, let's see, number of permits. Okay, yeah, like I said, those were down as about from about 177 to 152 permits total. Okay, then we had the list of all the various meetings, the APCBs, and the results of all public hearings. So if there's any questions about that, and one thing I did not do, because I didn't have things pulled together for the building inspections because of the strange situation we're in with Mr. Field doing those inspections. It was a different format, trying to track those that I wouldn't keep track of them myself. So that's why that section is blank on the annual report.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for the acceptance of the annual report.
Move to accept the annual report.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of acceptance of the annual report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay, your annual report is accepted. Anything else from members of the board?
There's a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Second, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Fayette County Board of Zoning Appeals. To order. To order. First thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Okay. Ed Harrell,
Here.
Bill Crawford,
Here.
Kenny Burgess,
Here.
Jason Waterman, Carrie Steele.
Here.
All here except Jason Waterman.
Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes?
Second.
Okay, election of the officers. Have the chair is the first. Do I have a motion for the chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I nominate Kerry Steele.
Second?
Kerry Steele.
Feel like Mr. Waterman. Okay, so take a vote.
Okay. Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Bill Crawford,
Yes.
Kenny Burgess,
Yes.
and that's all we can vote, so there
Okay.
you go.
All right. Now vice chair. Do I hear nominations for vice chair?
Nominate Jason Waterman.
Second?
Roll call.
Okay. Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Bill Crawford,
Yes.
Kenny Burgess,
Yes.
and Carrie Steele.
Yes.
Okay.
That you guys are gonna stick Bill with it.
I was thinking.
It's on
And
Sway.
As long as you can do it with people not here,
Do
we'll give
we
it all to
do a
the
motion to retain?
So moved.
Second.
Brenda?
Okay. Ed Harrell,
Yes.
Bill Crawford,
Yes.
Kenny Burgess, and Carrie Steele.
Yes.
All right.
Director's report?
Do you want me to repeat what I said?
No.
I don't know what I said.
I think we all heard it, didn't we?
I'll make a motion that we take the director's report as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I think that's it. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Brenda, if you could pass these down to Kenny.
Okay.